Down here, Panther Point, Panther Lake, Swan Lake, with the amount of water that we still got into our systems, man, we've had, a tremendous amount of wind that's been blowing. So it's keeping a lot of water in our system. It's not blowing it out. Seems like it just keeps blowing it back in here, and these bull tides keep hanging around with us. So with that, if you're able to and you're on the water these last few weeks and this upcoming week at least, is get out in some of these back lake areas and take advantage of this big old high waters and big tides that we've got. But down here in Panther Point Lake and Cedar Lake and Twin and all this stuff here it's been pretty good for us. It's a little bit of a long run depending on where you're coming from, but it's worth the run to get there. Lots of bait in the system, lots of stuff going on, plenty of fish being caught, trout there, redfish, even pulled out a few flounder here and there. But we've just been working our structure, all these areas here in Cedar and in Twin, just kind of spending time there, even coming around. We haven't gone far back into Powder, but we've been around these little back lake areas in here and inside the mangroves and all these types of areas back in here that you can wade, all that type of area. It's been good. We've consistently caught fish. No great fish. There's still plenty of trout that's got eggs in them. So again, if you don't need to keep one or two or three of those fish, let those females go and allow them to continue to lay those eggs. Redfish have been pretty solid for us as well, consistently catching those, and like I say, flounder or two here or there that's been pretty good as well. So working these edges, working these back lakes, just taking your time, working the structure in there, the grass, potholes, all that kind of stuff is the stuff that we're kind of focusing on. These outer edges on the reefs out here on Panther Point has been pretty good for trout. A lot of younger ones, a lot of males that are kind of hanging out in here, and they're catching them in that 14 to 17 range, but there's plenty of them to be had. So there's been some really good catching days back down in here. Primary baits that we've been using, of course, we were in the transition days. We're right there on the cusp of the new moon, so the new moon will be upon us already. So take advantage of those minors that you can, especially when they're right around here. That new moon's best 10-day stretch that there is, in my opinion, on this. So again, down south we've been throwing all three sizes, even the big smooth. We've been throwing the supermodel, been throwing the original, even throwing the burner shad size, just to see if to continue that bite. When that bite finally kind of tapered off, went to a little bit smaller profile to see if we can continue to push that, and it's been pretty successful for the most part. Mirror lures, the Little Johns have been good for us. Coastal brew baits, another one we've been throwing those. Been throwing mainly the 5-inch and their flavors. Knock and tail lure has been good for us. There's been a bunch of different baits that we've kind of tried and thrown and to see with these different people on the boat. So we've gotten pretty good production across the board with lots of these baits that we're throwing. So don't be afraid to throw it. Throw a top water in there, especially if you get back in these back lakes where you can kind of get secluded in some of these areas like that, especially like if you come up here to Cottonwood or the Shell Reef Bayou area back up in here. Great location to throw all your top water baits. Maybe just your subsurface baits, kind of like the Double D. The Double D's been very good for us as well. A lot of floating grass you kind of contend with, so if you got a top water bait with single hooks on that, give that a whirl. That'll help keep that grass away from it. That's something you just got to contend with. Again, these back lakes really become important with the amount of wind that we have and going on. Pretty good little storm this past week. Friday, I believe it was. Yep, that one was pretty nasty. That one was when you have to just kind of hunker down somewhere and just kind of ride it out best you can. But you can get a little protection from these back lakes. Work these things, work your majors and minors. Pay attention to what the weather is, because it's pretty volatile right now, so it's kind of all over the place. But always keep an eye on that as you begin and start to plan out your fishing day. The south end of mud on the outside, working these edges here all the way around and down toward Blind Pass or toward the ranch house. This whole shoreline, just kind of, we've been working it up and down that, been working the cuts, the little bayous in there that go off of it that feed into the back. Some of the back lakes have been good for us. Again, with the amount of water that we have, a lot of that stuff opens up for you. So we've just kind of focused on mud, just working these areas. Hard packed sand, mud islands, what I'm referring to. Really not too much happening over real super muddy areas. Those are kind of where we're starting to we're really not starting, but we are over hard packed sand, shale, that kind of stuff. Grass is always the constant. Working this whole thing, through blind pass on the backside. The little drop that's out here off the edge on the backside of mud, all that there. Some of these back lake areas, we're getting up in those. Just working all these. If you fish these areas, you know where I'm talking about. And then, of course, the tip out here on mud has been very good. Like I said, hadn't been able to get as far out on the tip as what we have in the past, just because of the amount of water that's in there. But with big old heavy breezes that we've had, that wind and everything that's kicking, being on this unprotected point out here, it's been pretty tough to fish. You can do it, just have to make sure your boat's well anchored, and you might lose that thing shooting across Aransas Bay. But it's been the same scenario. We've been just working the edges, working the grass, working some scattered shell that's in there, and just consistently catching fish, and it's been very good for us. Again, that's right here in this new moon phase. It's been really consistent. Working those trout primarily. Out up front, and we've come across redfish there in the back on these backside here in the back lakes, the shoreline edges, in those types of areas where we've located. So, like I say, it hasn't been just like super great numbers, but it's been consistent. And that's what we like to see. We just want that consistency. Just catching fish throughout your process of your day, and just working your techniques, working your edges. Again, majors and minors have been the main thing. Of course, the baits that primarily been using were the down south. And it's been pretty much whatever you wanted to throw, man. It's been, white ice, bone diamond, the same, big papa pearl, twisted tea. All these different flavors have been very productive for us. Big smooth's been pretty good. It's kind of focused on the big smooth, just really working it and getting the techniques down with that thing really well. And it's been very, very productive. Terrific bait. If you hadn't gotten a chance to try or use any of those, do so. It does really well. It's a really terrific bait. So, another one of the great products that Down South puts out there. Again, the Knock and Tail has been the same. Rogue has been consistent for us since day one when it came out, and it's continued to be productive for us. The greenback, and then of course heavy metal, watermelon red, and all their flavors have been very good as well. So any of those that you want to throw in, like I say, the tackle box is open right now. You can throw pretty much anything that you want as far as size. Color, again, kind of dictated to you pretty much by your water clarity. But, we kind of go off script sometimes and just try something just to see if it'll work or see if it's productive for us. And sometimes that's how you can find a little pattern for you, or some type of thing that's kind of unorthodox and it works. So remember that when you're out there and you're fishing, there's not a absolute way to do something. Be open-minded and try a bunch of different things if you want to. If you're feeling kind of wanting to have a fun day like that. So that's something you can always do. But again, consistently over the shell, sand, grass, that's where we're locating and finding our fish. Over here in St. Charles Bay, East Pocket, down in here, another little area there that you can get some protection from. We've got these big old southeast breezes that have been humming in here on us here in the last, seems like 10 to 15 days. Big, heavy winds anyway, but you can get around here off of Bird and come back around here on this east shoreline across from the boat ramp there. Working this, we've just been wading these, working these edges. Nothing in particular, nothing special. It's just, again, structure and bait. That's where you're going to find and locate large majority of your fish is in and around that type of stuff. Like I say, it's a great shoreline. You've got lots of grass, terrific potholes. Like I say, and then we're just locating fish, up and down there. Scattered trout here and there, redfish there. Run up to Egg Point up there, go up to Boy Scout, Big and Little Sharp, all the way down to Cavasso. Haven't spent much time in the very back there in St. Charles, all the way back there by where the culvert pipes that come through underneath the road back there. That's just big old lot of mud and clump shell back in that area. Of course, it's worth a shot. We get on that north shoreline up there. That's a nice solid bottom there. You can work it, but it takes a little bit of a beating when you get these big old southeast breeze. And of course, down in Cavasso, over here on the west shoreline, all the way down into Cow Chip, that area back down in here, this shoreline here coming off of that, it's been pretty good. Or Ernest Point there, and then of course, we've even worked the oyster beds that they put in, Texas Parks and Wildlife and CCA put in a few years back. These have been holding some fish as well, mostly trout in and around those, and they're all wadeable. Of course, it's been with the higher tides that we've had, it's a little bit more difficult to do, but you got a nice solid bottom that's out there that you can work all that. But again, take in consideration what kind of wind you have, because if from the southeast, that will just kind of beat that shoreline up. It just blows right into it, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to fish if that's what you were trying to do. So always be aware, wind-wise, what you're wanting to do and which way that you're wanting to come from, and to work all those areas there. So just like I say, we've just spent time back there in St. Charles. We've picked our days back in there and spent a lot of time in it, but we just picked our days and just go to work, working all the shoreline edges and those types of things in there. Of course, it's like I say, the new moon's been very productive for us. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of good stuff. Every trip that we had haven't been the most productive, but there's been a lot of consistent production. So you just have to take it for what it works. Again, just kind of have to look at what your expectations are and just kind of adjust accordingly what's going on that particular day. Always be safe on the water, what you're wanting to do. Just kind of say, have a plan when you go out there and get ready for that. Again, same baits we've been using, all 3-4 sizes of the down south, and just pretty much whatever flavor that you want to throw. Mirror lure Little Johns, the knocking tails, and the same flavors mentioned earlier. Soft dines, we've even thrown those. The XL, top water. So like I say, all the baits that I've ever mentioned in videos past, or even what's yet to come, we're throwing these same baits, and they're very consistent right now. So like I say, we're in the summertime pattern. A few more people on the water, especially around your weekends. Always make sure that you pay attention to that and just kind of where you're going to launch from and what you're going to take care of. Just be a little patient out there, get everybody a little grace period, and just take your time. There's going to be plenty of places for you to fish. So always take that into consideration, especially on heavy weekends. Again, majors and minors are your main things that you want to focus in and around on that, and just kind of set yourself up for multiple locations to fish.